At the beginning of the year, the Knesset narrowly passed the contentious Minimarket bill, a law that shutters most businesses on the weekly Shabbat holiday every Friday and Saturday. At the time, Interior Minister Aryeh Deri of the ultra-Orthodox Shas party said that he wouldn't actually enforce the law, but now, several months later, that has very much not turned out to be the case. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with more updates on this story. What's the latest, Brett?
Well, as you said, Aaron, critics of the law, which includes, business owners, secular Jews, businessmen, etc., they were assured by Deri back in January that he had no intent of actually enforcing that bill once it became a law. But pretty quickly, it was obvious that the ministry would, in fact, be following the very letter of that law. I mean, within weeks, the government started going city to city, making lists of, businesses and employees that were operating on Fridays and Saturdays and issuing fines accordingly. That's cities like Ashdod, where they mounted huge protests to that. And then the government backed down for a while. But now Deri's ministry has actually annulled the bylaws of several cities, 5 actually, across Israel, which had previously allowed them to bypass that mini-market law. So clearly the government is again mobilizing to follow that law to the T as written, despite whatever promises Deri did make months ago.
All right, now these 5 cities, we're talking about Modi'in, Rishon LeZion, Cholon, Givatayim, and Herzliya.
Right.
These are all cities in the center,
right,
typically with mixed immigrant populations and secular Jews as well as non-Jewish foreign workers. So as I understand it, as you mentioned, those cities all passed local bylaws which allowed them to skirt the mini-markets law.
Right.
So the question is, can the federal government even legally step in to block those laws now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, and both sides disagree about that. So the law used to specify that the Ministry of Interior, which does cover this jurisdiction, by the way, they would have 60 days to object to any city bylaw about anything once those were passed. Now, once those bylaws did pass months ago, there was no peep in the ministry. Aryeh Deri, on the other hand, contends that he now can step in at any time according to the new law. So according to him, these municipalities didn't sufficiently explain why they needed to keep their businesses open on the Shabbat weekend. The Director General of the Interior Ministry took that even a step further, but in a way that maybe sums up, the real bottom line here. He accuses these 5 cities of attempting to encourage, quote, criminal behavior that he says harms the rule of law by keeping businesses open on Shabbat. Now, legally, this will all go to the Supreme Court, but socially speaking, on the ground, this is looking like another one of those clashes of, religious laws, some would say religious coercion, against anyone who isn't an Orthodox Jew in the country. That's the feeling.
All right. Yeah, well, criminal behavior is certainly a little harsh of a title to be assigning to what are essentially just small businesses trying to earn a living. Tel Aviv, for example, was excluded completely from the final law altogether. And I know a lot of small business owners in Tel Aviv who would have gone bankrupt if not for the ability to sell on the weekends.
Sure.
Clearly, this issue is heating up all over again. I'm sure we'll have much more to discuss on this soon.
Sure.
In the meantime, thank you, Brett.
Of course.